My name is Elliot Harper, and up until that moment, I'd believed in the kind of love that poets lied about. Messy, unyielding. The kind that survives hospital vigils and job losses and the quiet terror of coming out in a small Ohio town where your father's Bible thumped louder than his disappointment. Nathaniel Kane and I had built something real in the concrete jungle of New York, where dreams were as disposable as subway tokens. We met at a dive bar in the East Village, the kind with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played Springsteen on repeat. I was 25, fresh off a freelance graphic design gig that barely covered my rent, nursing a whiskey sour and sketching strangers on a napkin to drown out the ache of another failed Tinder date. He walked in like he owned the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, with that tousled dark hair and eyes the color of storm clouds over the Hudson. A firefighter from Queens, off-shift and smelling faintly of smoke and sandalwood. He slid onto the stool next to me and said, "That drawing? It's me but better. Mind if I buy you another drink to make up for it?" We laughed that night until the bar closed, trading stories like contraband. Mine about the foster homes that taught me love was a loan you paid back with interest, his about a childhood in foster care too, bouncing between relatives who saw him as a paycheck more than a kid. By dawn, we were tangled in his truck bed sheets in a no-tell-motel off the Bruckner Expressway, not rushing toward anything but each other. It was the first time I'd felt seen, not as the gay kid with the chip on his shoulder, but as Elliot, the one who doodled galaxies on coffee cups and dreamed of illustrating children's books that made outcasts feel like heroes. From there, it snowballed. He pulled me into his world of blaring sirens and barbecue Sundays with his firehouse crew, who ribbed him mercilessly about the artsy pretty boy, but slapped my back like I belonged. I dragged him to gallery openings in Chelsea, where he'd stand awkwardly in chinos, whispering in my ear about how the abstract swirls looked like flames licking up a wall. We fought, sure, about his endless shifts leaving me alone with takeout and Netflix, about my freelance droughts making him foot the bills and swallow his pride. But the makeups were fireworks. Rooftop picnics with cheap wine and his head in my lap, reading aloud from dog-eared Vonnegut paperbacks until the city lights winked out. Cancer hit like a freight train 2 years in. Leukemia, the doc said. Aggressive but treatable if I was lucky. Nathaniel didn't flinch. He shaved his head first, before I even lost a strand, grinning in the mirror like it was a punk rock statement. Birds of a feather, L. Now we're both too ugly for anyone else. He juggled overtime at the station with midnight runs to the infusion center, holding my hand through the nausea, cracking jokes about how my bald pate made me look like a wise old owl. When the remission came, clean scans like a miracle, he dropped to one knee in Central Park, snow dusting his lashes, ring box trembling in his calloused fingers. "Marry me, Elliot Harper. Let's make this official before life throws another curveball." I said yes without breathing, the word tasting like freedom. Now, here we were, the night before the wedding, in a swanky rooftop suite at the Standard in the meatpacking district. Our guests, his firehouse buddies, my scattered artist friends from art school, a smattering of queer elders who'd mentored us through pride parades and legal battles for marriage equality, were milling below under string lights, toasting to the future. I'd slipped away to fetch Nathaniel's cufflinks, a pair engraved with our initials intertwined like vines. That's when I heard it. His voice, muffled but unmistakable, from the adjoining room where he'd stepped out for a quick call. "I love him, okay? But you, God, what we had last summer, it wasn't nothing. It was everything I was too scared to admit." Pause heavy as lead. "Yeah, Jake, my best man. The one who's been there since we were kids scraping knees in Queens group homes. Don't make this harder. Jake." Nathaniel's shadow, the wiry paramedic with the quick wit and quicker temper, who'd crashed on our couch more times than I could count after bad breakups or brutal calls. I'd always chalked up their bond to brotherhood, the kind forged in trauma, shared cigarettes after September 11th reruns, late-night confessions over beers about the foster dads who left bruises instead of bedtime stories. But last summer, while I was bald and barfing through chemo, Nathaniel pulling doubles to keep the lights on, Jake had been there too, sure, bringing groceries and bad action movies. I thanked him, hugged him like family. The door creaked under my weight, and I stumbled back, the cufflinks clattering to the floor like accusations. Footsteps, Nathaniel's, heavy-booted, and then he was there, face paling as our eyes locked. "El? What the?" I didn't let him finish. "How long?" My voice was a stranger's, scraped raw. The room spun, the king-sized bed with its crisp white duvet mocking me. The city skyline beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows a glittering lie. He reached for me, hands that had held me through fevers now feeling like chains. It's not, listen, babe, it was a mistake. One night, you were so sick and I was scared shitless and Jake. He gets it, the fear, you know? But it's you. Always you. One night. The words landed like punches, each one cracking open memories I'd armored myself with. The way he'd kiss my temple during PET scans, murmuring, "We've got this," like it was gospel. The hospital lobby where Jake had waited too, pacing with coffee cups, his arms slung casual over Nathaniel's shoulder in solidarity. Had it been more? In the on-call rooms, maybe, or the dim light of our apartment while I slept off morphine. "Get out," I whispered, then louder, "Get the fuck out." He did. After a beat, his eyes wet with something that looked like regret but felt like relief. The door clicked shut, and I sank to the carpet, shards from the glass flute winking like stars in the weave. My phone buzzed. Texts from friends downstairs, emojis of hearts and champagne. The ceremony was at sunset tomorrow. 300 people. Vows we'd written months ago, sealed with wax and wishes. Sleep didn't come. Instead, dawn crept in with the rumble of garbage trucks below, and I lay there plotting. Not revenge. I'm no arsonist, despite Nathaniel's line of work, but something sharper, truth, the kind that burns clean. By noon, the rooftop was a hive of last-minute chaos. Florists weaving peonies into arbors, a string quartet tuning up Vivaldi under the October sun. I moved through it like a ghost in my linen shirt and slacks, nodding at Aunt Clara from Ohio who'd flown in despite her arthritis, high-fiving Marco from my design co-op who'd DJ'd our engagement party. Nathaniel caught my eye across the setup, his jaw tight, Jake hovering nearby with a clipboard, avoiding my gaze like I'd suddenly gone radioactive. "Elliot, honey, you look peaky," my mom said, fussing with my collar. She'd aged a decade during my treatments, her hands bird-fragile but grip iron when she hugged me. Divorced twice, she'd clawed her way to real estate sales in Dayton, preaching resilience like a religion. Nerves? Something like that. I forced a smile, the one that had fooled oncologists into thinking I was handling it well. Inside, a storm brewed. Anger at him, at myself for missing the signs, at the fairy tale bullshit we'd bought into. The officiant, a drag queen named Reverend Divine who'd married half of Bushwick's queer scene, pulled me aside.
"Darling, spill."
Your aura's screaming plot twist. I almost told her, almost let the dam break, but bit it back. Not yet. The courage would come at the altar, when the world was watching. As guests filtered in, firefighters in ill-fitting suits, artists with tattoos peeking from cuffs, a rainbow of faces under the harvest moon rising early. I stood at the edge, heart a war drum. Nathaniel took his place under the arbor, resplendent in ivory tux, his smile practiced perfection for the photos. Jake flanked him, best man duties masking whatever sins simmered beneath. The quartet struck up Canon in D, and I walked the aisle alone. No father to give me away, just the weight of my own steps on the wooden planks. Eyes on me, applause soft and swelling. I reached Nathaniel, our hands meant to clasp, but I held back, the ring box heavy in my pocket like an unexploded bomb. The Reverend beamed. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to unite these two souls in the unbreakable bond of matrimony. Elliot and Nathaniel, you've chosen love in a world that often demands we hide it. Today you celebrate it." The words washed over me like holy water on a wound, cool, stinging, illusory. Nathaniel's eyes locked on mine, pleading silent forgiveness, his fingers twitching to bridge the gap. But I couldn't. Not with Jake's gaze burning holes from the side. Not with the memory of that voice cracking through the door like thunder. Reverend Divine turned to him first. "Nathaniel Kane, do you take Elliot Harper to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or worse?" A hush fell, the city hummed distant below. Nathaniel swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing like a buoy in choppy seas. His voice faltered, and for a split second, I saw the boy from the group home, the one who'd confessed over dive bar whiskeys about stealing food from corner stores to survive. Vulnerable. Human. "I do," he finished, strong but strained. sliding the platinum band toward my finger. It caught the light, a promise etched in metal. The Reverend nodded, turning to me with that knowing sparkle. Elliot Harper, do you take Nathaniel Kane? I do not. The words exploded from me, raw and unscripted, slicing the air like a siren's wail. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Aunt Clara's hand flying to her pearls. Marco's jaw unhinging mid-sip of rose. Nathaniel's face crumpled, color draining to ash. The Reverend's eyebrows arched, but she recovered like a pro, microphone dipping toward me. Elliot? Darling, are you? Let me explain. I stepped forward, claiming the mic from her manicured grasp. My voice steady despite the quake in my knees. The rooftop felt infinite. 300 faces a sea of shock and curiosity. The skyline a jagged witness. Because this isn't just about us. It's about all of us. I paused, breath ragged, scanning the crowd. There was Rosa, the lesbian librarian who'd lent me Vonnegut when I was 16 and questioning. Big Mike from the firehouse, who'd come out at 50 after decades of silence. My mom, tears carving tracks through her makeup, nodding like she knew this fire had been smoldering. Nathaniel and I, we built a life on ashes. Foster kids, both of us, learning early that love's a gamble with loaded dice. We beat cancer together, mine not his, but it touched us both. He held me when I couldn't stand, shaved his head when vanity was the least of my losses. We planned this day as our victory lap. Murmurs stirred, but I pressed on, the words pouring like rain after drought. Last night, I overheard something that shattered that. A confession, a betrayal, not just to me, but to the trust we'd forged in the dark. I turned to Nathaniel, whose eyes glistened, fists clenched at his sides. You said it was one night, with Jake, while I was fighting for my life. A collective inhale. Jake bolted upright, face scarlet, stammering, wait. But I cut him off with a raised hand, gentle but firm. No. This isn't an accusation. It's a revelation. My voice cracked then, the first tear slipping free, hot on my cheek. Because here's the truth I've been hiding, even from myself. I suspected. The late nights, the whispers, the way you'd pull away after his visits. But I ignored it. Clung to the story we'd written. The perfect gay fairy tale in a city that chews up happy endings. And that's the real betrayal. Mine to myself. Nathaniel stepped closer, voice a broken whisper into the mic. Please. I fucked up. I was terrified. Of losing you, of not being enough. Jake, it was stupid, a moment of weakness. But I love you. Let me fix this. The crowd shifted uneasily, some averting eyes, others leaning in like it was a street theater unfolding. I felt exposed, raw as an open wound. But there was power in it too. A courage I'd only glimpsed in the mirror during chemo, bald and brave. Fix it? How, Nate? By pretending? By vowing for better or worse, when the worse already came and you looked elsewhere? He flinched, and God, it hurt. The love still there, tangled with the ache. We'd been each other's anchor, two drifters in the urban sprawl, finding harbor in late-night diners and dawn runs along the West Side Highway. Remembered flashes. Him teaching me to drive stick in an empty lot, laughing when I stalled. Me surprising him with tickets to a Yankees game, his whoop echoing over the bleachers. But love, I realized then, wasn't a mooring. It was a sail, full when the winds aligned, tattered when they didn't. I can't marry you today, I said, softer now, the band slipping from his fingers to clatter on the planks. Not like this, but I won't hate you, because hating means carrying your weight, and I've got my own to shoulder. I turned to Jake, who looked like he'd been gut-punched. And you, brother, once. Find your own truth. Don't borrow someone else's. The Reverend cleared her throat, improvising with grace. Well, folks, seems we've got ourselves a plot twist. But love's not a script, it's improv. Elliot, what's next? I laughed, a wet, surprising sound, wiping my face. Next, we dance. Because life's too short for unworn shoes. I nodded to Marco, who scrambled to the decks, dropping the needle on Dancing Queen, ironic, defiant, alive. A few giggles broke the tension, then claps, and slowly, the rooftop thawed. Aunt Clara pulled out a flask, passing it to Big Mike. Rosa tugged my mom into a sway. Nathaniel stood rooted, devastation etching lines I'd never seen before.
Él.
He reached, but I stepped back, not cruel, just clear. Go. Talk to him. I jerked my chin toward Jake, who was slinking toward the elevators. Or don't. But choose, Nate. Really choose. He nodded, broken, and melted into the crowd, leaving me adrift in the melody. Hands found me. Friends, pulling me into the fray. Their embraces a chorus of "You okay?" and "Proud of you." I wasn't okay. Not yet. The hollow in my chest echoed like an empty loft, but I was free. For the first time since the diagnosis, truly free. The night blurred into a vigil of sorts. Toasts turned testimonies, guests sharing their own scars under the stars. My mom confessed her first marriage's quiet cruelties. Big Mike admitted the firehouse outing that nearly cost him his badge but gained him brothers. By midnight, the rooftop was a confessional, laughter mingling with sobs, the city a benevolent backdrop. I slipped away eventually, down to the edge overlooking the high line, the air crisp with fallen leaves. Footsteps, Nathaniel's, I knew without turning. "I'm sorry," he said, voice gravel over glass. "For everything. You deserved better." I leaned on the railing, the Hudson a black ribbon below. I deserved truth, and now I have it. Silence stretched, companionable in its ache. "What about you? Was it more than a night?" He exhaled, long and low.
No.
"But it could have been. That's the shame." I got scared, of the rings, the vows, the forever. Thought maybe Jake understood that fear better. But he doesn't. No one does like you. I turned, meeting his eyes, storm clouds clearing to blue. "Then why?" "Fear's a hell of a drug. Makes you forget the man who'd fight dragons for you." He stepped closer, not touching, just near. "Can we try? Without the show?" The question hung, a lifeline or a noose. Part of me yearned, the boy who'd fallen for the firefighter's grin. But the man I'd become, forged in fire and betrayal, whispered caution. "Not tonight. Maybe not ever. But go home, Nate. Pack my stuff if you want. Or leave it. We'll figure the logistics like adults." He nodded, retreating with a ghost of a smile. "You're braver than me, Harper. Always were." Alone again, I breathed deep, the night air tasting of possibility. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was dancing through it, mic in hand, heart on sleeve. And damn if it didn't feel like flying. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in unraveling. Practical, painful, profoundly human. Our apartment in Williamsburg, once a sanctuary of exposed brick and mismatched furniture, became a battlefield of cardboard boxes and barbed silences. Nathaniel moved out first, crashing at Jake's until the awkwardness imploded in a blowout that ended their friendship with flung accusations and a slammed door. I heard the details secondhand from Big Mike, who mediated over burgers at the Firehouse Diner. "Kid's a mess. L blames himself, but he's owning it. Therapy, the works." I nodded into my coffee, steam curling like unanswered questions. Therapy for me too. A queer-affirming shrink in Park Slope named Dr. Lena, whose office smelled of chamomile and held space for the grief I hadn't named. "Betrayal's a death," she said one rainy Tuesday, her glasses fogging slightly. "Mourn it, then rebirth." Morning looked like solo runs along the East River, iPod blasting Hosier until my lungs burned. Gallery crawls where I sketched strangers' faces, capturing fleeting joys I'd almost forgotten. My freelance work surged. Book covers for indie presses, bold lines and vibrant hues that mirrored the crack in my chest slowly sealing with gold, kintsugi style. Friends rallied, Marco hosting divorce parties with bottomless mimosas and bad karaoke. Rosa curating a shelf of post-heartbreak reads, from bell hooks to Audre Lorde. Nathaniel and I met neutrally, at a coffee shop in Midtown, lawyers on speed dial but unused. We divvied assets like reluctant archaeologists. The shared Netflix queue split, his Springsteen vinyls to him, my Vonnegut collection staying put. "Keep the truck," I said, signing over the title. "You taught me to drive it." He traced the pen's path, eyes shadowed. "And you taught me to stop running." Awkward hugs followed. The kind that lingered too long or not long enough, ghosts of touch. But the real work was internal, an excavation of self. I volunteered at the LGBTQ Center in Chelsea, facilitating groups for queer youth. Foster kids mostly, wide-eyed and wary, echoing the boy I'd been. Love isn't a prize, I'd tell them, circling folding chairs under fluorescent hum. It's a practice. Messy, yeah, but yours to define. Their stories cracked me open. The trans kid rejected by blood, the bi teen navigating biphobia in the community. In their resilience, I found mine. Thanksgiving loomed, a minefield of family. Mom insisted on neutral ground, a diner in Dayton, turkey slices on formica. She grilled me gently over pie. That boy, Nathaniel, he ever reach out? Texts, apologies, space. I forked crust, flaky as old wounds. I'm okay, Mom. Really. She squeezed my hand, her rings cool. You remind me of your grandma. Stubborn heart, soft soul. She left my dad after 20 years. Said, life's too short for half-loves. Took guts. Back in New York by Black Friday, the city pulsed with commercial frenzy, but I sought quieter rhythms. A pride flag fluttering from a brownstone stoop, the sizzle of knishes from a street cart. One crisp December eve, wandering Washington Square Park, I bumped, literally, into Theo, a photographer with ink-stained fingers and a lopsided grin. He was shooting buskers for a zine, camera slung low, apologizing profusely when our coffees collided. No harm, I laughed, mopping the splash with a napkin. We chatted, him from Seattle, chasing light in the east, me spilling about my illustrations. By the arch, under strung lights, he asked for my number. For collab, he said, eyes twinkling. Or coffee. Your call. I hesitated, the echo of Nathaniel's voice a faint scar. But courage, I'd learned, was saying yes to the unknown. Both. Our first date was low stakes. Dim sum in Chinatown, steam rising like secrets shared. Theo was easy. Stories of backpacking the Appalachians, coming out to logger parents who surprised him with acceptance. No grand gestures, just presence. His knee brushing mine under the table, a laugh that crinkled his eyes. When he kissed me goodnight outside my walk-up, tentative and sweet, it felt like permission. Not replacement, but renewal. Nathaniel faded to periphery, holiday cards. A mutual friend's wedding invite we both declined. Word came via Marco. He'd transferred stations upstate, closer to his ailing aunt, dating no one seriously. Healing, Marco said. Like you. Spring bloomed unforgiving, cherry blossoms carpeting the high line like confetti from a do-over. My first exhibit opened in a Soho loft, illustrations of queer folktales, outcasts as kings and queens. Theo was there, snapping candids. Mom flew in, beaming through tears. And Nathaniel? He sent a postcard, postmarked Albany. Saw the listing. Proud. N. I pinned it to the fridge, next to Theo's latest print. Us at Coney Island, wind-whipped and grinning. The anniversary of that rooftop non-wedding found me on another. A community center gala, emceeing a fundraiser for the center. String lights again. But this time, my words flowed unburdened. 2 years ago, I stood at an altar and chose truth over tradition. It hurt like hell, but it led here, to all of you, building lives unapologetic and intertwined. Applause thundered, and from the wings, Reverend Divine winked. Encore, darling. After overpunch, Theo pulled me aside. Marry me? Not today. Someday. When you're ready. I kissed him, tasting salt and future. Someday. Courage, it turns out, isn't a single blaze. It's embers, tended daily. It doesn't erase the burns but warms the hands that reach for more. In the end, the lesson wasn't in the betrayal, but in the turning. Toward light, toward self, toward the messy miracle of loving anyway. And in America's vast, flawed heart, where skylines scrape heavens and souls scrape bottoms, that's where I found my forever. Not perfect, but profoundly mine.